The Changeling, because this is always one of those movies that when I think about it, I always kind of assume was based on a novel, but it was not. Can you talk about how you became involved with the project? Also, maybe why you even wanted to do a horror movie of all things, coming off of what you've done.
I always loved supernatural things, and I was always very attracted to it, and I love scary things, but done with kind of style and class in a way. So it's not the cheap horror, you know, but it's trying to scare you or me. I mean, it's just when you're frightened, when you're at home or when you're a little kid, and you hear noises, or you think you're in your cot, and you're half asleep, and you're like 6 months old, and you see a witch or something, and you know, those things are very real, and it's when you make a movie, the more simpler you do it, the better it is, and it's a great exercise how to scare people, you know, particularly if you have a very simple story. And the Changeling actually supposedly came from a couple of true incidences, and it was an original script. And years before, you know, when I was an assistant director, I remember reading the script of Robert Wise's The Hauntings. And when I was reading it in London, I was so petrified I couldn't move in my little bedroom, you know. And when you get that kind of scariness when you read a script of 120 pages, and it frightens you, you have to do it, you know. So when I read the script of The Changeling, I had the same feeling. And it just, sometimes you can plan and scheme on things and work on projects for years, you know, and they don't happen, however brilliant they could be. And sometimes things just come to you. And The Changeling was one of those projects, you know. But then, of course, I worked on the script, and it wasn't exactly like what it is, you know, but then you put your own kind of fantasy into it, and that's what happened. And I fortunately had this incredible George Scott in it, you know, who was absolute magic to work with, and it was tremendous fun. And I loved Hitchcock always. Who doesn't, you know? And I did it very much like, had he made this, he would have made it like that, you know. And you probably all have seen the movie before, but
who here hasn't seen the movie before? Ooh, nice.
You're in for a treat.
But the thing is that basically everything we built, it was a set, which we built in Vancouver, and I had to have it on 2 or 3 stories high, and because I had to go up in one piece to the attic, you know, where certain things happen in most kind of horror movies or ghost stories. So the set was terribly important, and when I came into the film, the producers didn't. They had a different concept, and they wanted to make the movie in a house which didn't look like a haunted house. And I didn't want to do it because I couldn't have done my shots then, what you will see in the film. And it's very important, the look of the film, and of course, every frame of it was designed, you know, in a certain way. And it was a fantastic exercise. But ever since then, which is now, I think, 34 years ago, I couldn't find another story which came up to it. And I've been looking for one ever since, you know. And sometimes you get very close to it with other subjects, but it can never happen, you know.
Can you talk more about working with George C. Scott? It's interesting putting him in a movie like this because he's often such a scenery-chewing, like, force of nature. And there's so much of the movie that's just him by himself listening to things.
Yeah, but to me, I mean, he was a magical actor, and he was a very serious person, and I remember when I first met him, I told him what I wanted to do with it, and I never forget his face, you know, in Connecticut in his house, you know. And he said, "Oh, are you telling me all this?" You know, I said, "Well, because you see what I'm trying to do with it, you know." But I mean, he was a fantastic actor, and it took maybe a couple of days to get him into my confidence completely. And after that, I could have done anything with him, you know. But it just was incredibly powerful, and some of the best parts of the movie for me is when he's doing absolutely nothing, and he's just listening, and I mean, the best shot for me in the movie is totally unimportant when he turns off the lights in a room, or turns it on, I can't remember, I think it turns on, or turns it off. And it's just because I'm behind him in the back, and he's just sensational.
But he liked working with you, I'm assuming?
Yeah, no, we loved each other, and we become very good friends, and used to call him, "Oh, you are crazy Hungarian," you know. But he was fantastic, you know, absolutely fantastic.
Do you think there was a trick to working with him? Because it's almost around that exact same time. There's a famous story when he was shooting Hardcore, and he didn't like working with Paul Schrader, and he wouldn't talk of his trailer until Paul Schrader agreed to never make another movie again. Paul Schrader lied, but he had to make that bargain. Do you think that was just because he didn't like Paul Schrader, or did you have a
it's
special trick?
Listen, every director works in a different way, and it's just how you handle people. And George was a very tough guy, and and you couldn't bullshit him about anything. And once he knew that I'm real, I mean that I know what I'm doing, you know. And how do you know what you're doing except by doing it, you know? And once he knew that, I mean, I remember the first couple of days at the beginning, he was kind of suspicious, but then he kept asking, "What lens are you putting on? Why are you putting it on the floor? Or why are you up in the top corner of the room?" You know, and stuff like that. And then he said, "Do you mind if I come and look at some dailies?" So the more he looked, the more he kind of opened up. And seriously, I mean, I could wake him up in the middle of the night because half the time we were shooting at night. It was very cold in Vancouver. And he used to be in his trailer, and he used to play chess with himself most of the time, you know. And sometimes they had to move his camper, and of course they ruined his game, which he's been playing for 2-3 weeks. You know. They went absolutely fucking crazy. And you could see the trailer shaking, you know. But I could just drag him on and wake him up and say, "What do you want?" You know. And then I tell him, you know, said, "Okay," you know. But I mean, it was his magic, you know. And I was very fortunate with some of the actors I worked with in my crazy career, you know.
You also had another great actor in this, I think one of his final films, Melvin Douglas. Had he already won the Oscar for being there, or did that happen?
No, being there happened after this movie. And in fact, I had to shoot a scene, you know, which we did later on, and Melvin came back from being there to shoot that scene. And you see the staircase which collapses at the end of the movie. And Melvin, or his soul, or his ghost is walking out, you know. And at a given point, when I gave the signal, you know, the specialist guy pulled his lever, and it was a staircase. I mean, it was, let's go from here to the top of the room. And it collapsed, you know. I had to. But Melvin had to get to the top of the steps, you know. And I remember I was right on the top, and one day when I was cutting the movie, I thought I was going crazy because I suddenly saw myself in the film. And I said to the editor, we were still cutting on film, I said, stop the movie owner, you know, and then when you looked at it, I was in like 1.5 frame, which you thought, which your eye doesn't quite register. And I was there waiting, you know, trying to, I mean, there were stunt people around Melvin on the top of the stairs, but he had to walk all the way up and clear it before the thing collapsed.
Wow.
But I was there to try to grab him in case. But I mean, he was absolutely magical, you know, because of the movies he done, you know, with Garbo but he was a wonderful jobbing actor. And he was telling me while we were shooting in Canada that he was there with a touring company, I don't know, in 1910 or something, you know, doing Shakespeare.
How old was he at that point?
I think, I'm not quite sure, I think he had to be probably 75, if not more. And he was not in great health, you know, and I said to him, I said, do you think you can make the staircase? And he said, oh, absolutely, you know.
He'd already won his second Oscar before that, so
it
would have been a good way to go, I guess.
It was a great honor to really work with him. And he was surrounded by all the women of the film crew all the time, because he was always telling stories, and everybody, the women just loved him. You know. And become great friends with my oldest son, because he was there a little bit while I was shooting, and I mean, for like 2 years they were corresponding in letters, you know, and it was great for a guy like that to do.
Yeah.
You know. It was magic. Yeah. But I love making the movie, you know, and it's like a dream, because it's so long ago, and it's wonderful to see it again, and I think it's a pretty good print, which we made maybe 10 years ago, and I hope you enjoy it.
All right.